Hey there, this is Maynard, Barn Shop Productions, as you can see, Semper Fi to everybody. Today we're going to concentrate on paint. My Barn Shop Productions usually concentrates on body paint and maintenance. Today it's going to be a bit about the body paint. We're going to get prepped here for applying some primer. Thought I'd go over a couple of things with you here and let you see exactly what we've got going with the primer. I have a little 95 Mazda here in the shop. The pickup truck is a red originally. The body's in pretty good shape. It's not a bad bit of metal work at all. It's pretty smooth. But I did run into a couple of issues with it. Basically what I had to do is on the top of the bed, from the top, flat top of the edge of the bed down, about 10 inches or 12 on either side of the bed, I had to pretty much strip the metal off, or strip the paint off the metal. Now, that leaves me with direct metal contact. Now below that, I still have a lot of paint, which I worked in. I feather edged my exposed metal edges right into the paint. Should be okay, it'll look good. Now what I'm going to do today is give you a little bit of an insight on what I'm going to use. I'm going to use a primer that's made by Evercoat. This Evercoat primer is a direct to metal called DTM. That is Delta Tango Mike. High build, very easy to work type of primer. Basically, it's made for direct to metal, where metal is showing. And the purpose is, it has chemicals within the ingredients of this that will protect that metal from moisture and rust, and therefore moisture and rust doesn't get under there, pop up your paint and make it look like a bulldozer ran over it in less than a year. So it's a little expensive. It's not that difficult to put on. It's not that difficult to apply. The company Evercoat, they suggest basically that you use a 1.6 to 2.2 tip on your spray gun. Now my spray gun here, I've got it set up with a 1.8. I'd like to stay down on the bottom end of it. If it's a little bit thick, then I may add a little bit of reducer to it. But primarily, this is a two-part paint primer. This is the direct to metal catalyst. It's a fast. I'm in the shop right now. I've got it up about 77 degrees, somewhere around 76, 77. It seems to be holding about 77 degrees right at the moment. I think that's perfect. 75 and below, this paint primer will get hard on you. If your pot time is over about 60 minutes. If it's above 75, you've got about, no, I have that mistaken. It's about 45 minutes. And then if it's above 75, you've got about an hour. Now it takes about 2 hours for this to set up good and solid. And then you can put 400 grit paper on it and start sanding it down. It's a very high build. It really seems to work good. They're not out of the ordinary in price. You get the two together, you're not going to have all that much money in it. Now, I want to give you a little advice here. There is typically a combination of ingredients in this that will settle if it's left sitting. A lot of times they will mix it for you. They will shake it in the shaker. It takes an awful lot to get this DTM mixed back up. Personally, I bought myself a little $5, $6 paddle wheel here, paddle stirrer. Hook it up to my little cordless drill. You have to be very careful because if it's full and you put that in there and start spinning much, you're going to have it everywhere. So I suggest possibly pouring out into one of your paint cups or something, a quart. Gets it down there a little bit so that you don't have it rising up and going off the sides and all over everything. This is like putty inside here when it settles up a couple of inches or so. It takes a bit of stirring. So I suggest you stir it good. If you've had it from the shaker that they might have mixed it for you, I'd still stir it good, because a lot of times that doesn't work real well, especially with this. I wouldn't wait more than a day. Couple of days at the most. If you do, I'd be sure to stir it up before you use it, because if those ingredients are not mixed properly, they cannot do their job. And if they cannot do the job that they're applied for, which is to prevent moisture and rust, you're going to have a bad job show up on you here shortly, and particularly if you're doing it for someone else and it's not a personal job. And if it's your own personal equipment, you don't want to have to go back and repaint it again in a few months. So basically, that's giving you an idea of where we're going with this. Now, I mentioned earlier, to someone I was talking to a little bit earlier about the possibility of a reducer if I needed to maybe thin it down just a little bit in order to well, make it a little easier for that 1.8 to spray it. We'll see. My little jigger here, I'd probably mix it down if I had to at this temperature. Oh, maybe half this little jigger, possibly full. Excuse me. One last thing before we go on, and that is, in your paint cup, you have on the outside several different columns of numbers. These are mix ratios. Excuse me. I'm going, according to their instructions from the factory, 4 to 1. Now that means that I've got, in the first column is always the paint. Second column on them is always your catalyst or activator. Third column will be whatever else you might have to use, a reducer or whatever. Now on this, it's not that hard. You can't see this, I know, on the camera right now, but if you have a paint container like this that you mix it in, you need it, because that's one of the reasons they make these, so that you can make sure your ingredients are mixed proportionately according to the factory requirements of the paint. 4 to 1 doesn't mean that you need to weigh it out by ounces or whatever. It means 4 parts of this DTM primer to 1 part of catalyst. Now, in the 4 to 1, this particular container has a 4-1-1. 4:1:1. First column, as I said, is going to be your paint, primer, whatever. It's your color. The second column is going to be this catalyst. Now, if I want to have maybe, say, a 3/4 cup of paint when I'm finished mixing all this together, I'll go here to my 4 to 1. I'll come up the first column to say, oh, about this fingertip there is at 7, even though you can't see it. I figure if I go to 7, and then it's 4 to 1, my next column, 7, under my finger there, is my catalyst. That's going to give me about 3/4, maybe 2/3 of a quart. That's about what I need. You just kind of have to estimate what you need so that you don't have to remix more and finish the job or have a lot left over. So that gives you an idea of how it goes. Now, if I decide to add a little reducer to this to kind of thin it down just a little bit so that it applies a little bit easier, I think the flow will be just fine out of my gun at 1.8 tip. If not, then like I said, I'll get my little jigger here and I'll put about, a half ounce maybe to start with in there. I'll stir it a little bit, let it drip off. Now I can tell when I look at it, I don't have all that much experience, but I can tell that if it drips off at a reasonable rate of speed off of the stirrer, that it's probably thin enough. So I kind of go by that. It's kind of a touch and go type of feel. What you feel is appropriate. And then when you get to spraying, if you haven't been spraying much and you're just learning, basically what you're going to do is you're going to learn by experience. There is no teacher like experience, but the thing about your experience, it needs to be experience gained from someone that knows what to tell you. Now, like I said, I haven't been doing this long. I'm 75 years old. I'm an old timer, and I am retired, and I'm playing. And this shop is my playground. I'm enjoying it. It's fun. I never did anything like this in my life before I retired, but it sure has been a pleasure. And I'd like to pass on what I'm learning to you if you'll be patient with me. I may make mistakes. If I do, then let me know. Be sure and make a comment on my YouTube site there. But what I want you to remember is don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Like me, share it. I've got something on the Facebook, but it's not up to date yet. I'll have it finalized and be on there really good. So remind your friends to check me out there and watch for my next video. This is part 1. Part 2, I'm going to mix this DTM. I'm going to put it in the spray gun. I'm going to show you a bit of applying it. Let's smear some paint on next. Well, I thank you. Semper Fi. Y'all have a good day. I'll see you in the next video.